In this video, we're going to write up your method section. If you're at this point, by now you should have completed your Prisma flowchart from the initial databases, total records, all the way through to the final articles you have selected for analysis and going on with the rest of the course. This is the perfect point to write up your methods because it's fresh on your mind. You've just done it. And I'm going to show you using our simple methods tools how you can do that already now. It's a really gratifying feeling to get to this point because you're really right around the halfway marker of the project. So I'm going to come over to a Word document. What you can see is we're picking where we left off with our methods, starting to write the document where we've got our keywords, the keyword variants. Yours should also have at this point the nearest neighbor match that you use for each of these keywords and the citation. You should also have kept track of your final search, verbatim what you put into the search engines, because I want that to be copied and pasted into here. Now, your methods are going to have a few key subheadings. This can again vary by field, so this is where that very first nearest neighbor paper that you found at the very first week of the course could be helpful for structuring your methods. I'm going to show you a general structure for the methods that will work for the vast majority of you. All these components will need to be in your method section in one place or another. I'm going to write up in the most linear way that I think is the most logical and easy to follow because it mirrors exactly what you've done. So that is going to have search strategy. I like to italicize that in the methods, not bold it. You want to have inclusion, exclusion. And then you want to have potentially extraction and analysis. And if applicable, we will come back and put a quality assessment section. But for now, we're not going to do that because we haven't gotten to that stage yet. So leave that. We may come back and update the methods, but we want to be sure we've covered everything you've done so far. To do this, we're also going to want to copy in our Prisma figure. So I'm just going to Control A to copy everything, Control C to copy. I'm using Windows. I'm going to create figure 1, and I'm going to call it Prisma Flow Diagram. And I'm going to paste special, if you're using Windows here, using a PNG format. And that should make a really nice looking Prisma flow diagram. I want to make it a little bit smaller. The other thing I want you to do instead of your documents is to go into layout, breaks, put a section break. It may be that we need to create an orientation that's landscape or portrait. Section breaks we want between each of our major sections and for each of our figures. And there we go. We have our nice Prisma diagram, and that is going to be a guide. This is going to help us write up our section step by step. So the first thing we want to do in our methods is to note that we performed a systematic review. I find it easier to write in the first person, I and we. It tends to help you write with a more active voice. I'm going to be drawing heavily, by the way, whenever writing on the writing training that you're going to find in the Foundations course that's available to you in Kajabi. If you're having trouble finding that, do get in touch. But what I like to say here is we searched, or we performed a systematic review following the Prisma methods. And we want to put a citation to Prisma. So I'm just going to put this now to remind myself in parentheses to cite it. So we performed a systematic review and following the Prisma, using the protocol published in Prospero. And this Prospero, if you register with Prospero, following I like to say the best practice Prisma methods, using the Prospero protocol, you want to list and actually itemize where that was. And you'll have a citation here to where your protocol is. So if this is relevant and you did register with Prospero, that will go here. Some of you may not have registered with Prospero yet. That's okay. You're going to see that in an upcoming week. You can go back and fill out this section. Just leave it as a placeholder for now. Search strategy. So this is where we want to talk about the databases you searched and what keywords and keyword variants that you used to do your search. So we just need to also specify the date. So we searched PubMed and Web of Science on, let's say, March 2nd, 2022 for peer-reviewed articles. Many of you will probably be searching for peer-reviewed articles on whatever your topic is. In this example, social capital and oral health. We operationalized different permutations of each keyword as follows. And here might be where you want to say for social capital what variants you used, and oral health what you used. Or you might want to refer to the appendix for your search if it's a very complicated and long search. So what I would even suggest doing is to list the verbatim search. So if you can fit it onto a line, you might even put it as an equation here. So social capital, and put in the Boolean logic. I'm just doing this for the sake of example. But you want to have this be as simple as possible, and you need this for your records so that you can go back later and copy in copy and paste the search logic statement that you have, copy it into the search engine, and get the same result again. So whatever this is, I want you to have it verbatim here. If it's incredibly long, just put in parentheses and say as the full details of the search and associated PICO are available in Appendix 1. If it's particularly long, you might want to add a line along those lines. If it's very short, you could just leave everything in the full text. At this point, we want to start describing our Prisma. And this is where I recommend that you split the screen and look at your Prisma while you're actually writing this up. So there we go. Our initial search identified a total of 145 articles in PubMed and 45 in Web of Science. This should be very straightforward for you to write up because you've already done the work. And now you're just describing in a simple way what you've done. Of these 190 articles, 45 were identified as duplicates. One other thing you might want to put is that you might want to cite which reference manager you used. Our initial search was which were imported into Zotero reference management software. You could just say Zotero and add a citation if you want. 45 were identified as duplicates, leaving a total of 145 for screening and eligibility stages. That's it. That's the top part. What you need to say is we searched the articles on these dates using these key terms. The other point to mention, if you searched using different permutations of each keywords using the title and abstract fields as follows, if that's what you used, you might want to even include that logic here if that's relevant. Again, you want to make this so that your reviewer can copy and paste your search into an engine themselves to check your work and see how detailed and precise you've been. That is the standard of replicability and reproducibility that we're aiming for here. So make sure at this stage, if you don't already, you have that verbatim in your Word document. We also want you to be sure that you cite the nearest neighbor papers as follows. This is a good place to do that. We operationalize different permutations of each keyword using title abstract field as follows. You could elaborate at this point if you want. We operationalize different permutations of each keywords based on previously validated searches. For social capital, we included X and Y following the review of X and Y authors citation. So you might want to cite, I don't know, could be Jensen and colleagues, for example. Add the citation there. Similarly, for oral health, we drew on a series of reviews to identify keyword variants. So you could do it this way, and again, make sure you cite the different authors here, and then say we applied the fields. You could do it this way as well: title and abstract in the search. and the full details are available. So there are many different ways to do this, that you could say this. The most important thing, there's no 100% correct way or 100% wrong way, is to make it crystal clear so people can understand what you've done. If it's helpful, assume that the people reading this are dumb and they're going to get confused. So again, and they will. Reviewers are going to look at this and be trying to, at a glance, figure out what you did. Keep it as simple as possible. Okay, so that's the first step. We've now described this first identification stage of the Prisma. Now we want to go on to inclusion, exclusion. Okay, so we applied a series of inclusion and exclusion criteria. Articles were included if, one, you might list like this, they were written if they were, one, written in English, for example. Two, published in a peer-reviewed journal. Three, randomized controlled trials. And four, included whatever your PICO outcome was. Say, included the Maslow index of burnout. So that's very important to specify. They were excluded if XXX. Explain that. And you might have your PICO table that describes your inclusion and exclusion. Make sure all the relevant details are included here. They were excluded if, for example, they were published prior to the year 1990, since before that time, the internet, or whatever technology, the digital technology X, was not available. So was not relevant to the study. You just want to explain and justify your inclusion and exclusion criteria. If you are able to cite other authors here, that can be extremely helpful because it's, again, corroborating and giving you extra support for why you did what you did. That you didn't just cherry pick or come pick out of a hat these ideas, that you've really thought them through and you have a really good justification for them. Make sure that that's in there. If there's another review that you're following the footsteps of and they applied the criteria this way, cite that and say, following these authors, we applied these series of inclusion exclusion criteria. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to itemize the numbers. So for example here, of the 145 records screened, we excluded 76 because they did not cover risk communication, which might have been the intervention. This is just for example's sake. And four were not in English. So you can see I'm just writing the numbers here, leaving a total of 65 articles, which we sought the full text for retrieval. We were unable to find the full text for 2 articles. I'm just making this up because you can see in the Prisma it's actually 0, but just for an example here, resulting in however many, 65 articles for eligibility. It's very important in completing your Prisma, by the way, to make sure all your numbers add up because you're going to be writing it here in the method. So I want you to take an extra time to check that all the numbers in your Prisma add up. This is one of the things. Reviewers can't replicate everything you've done, but they will check to make sure your paper is internally consistent. And it's a surefire way to get your paper rejected if the numbers don't add up. It's a rookie error. I don't want you to make it. So make sure all your numbers add up. When you have 65, add all of these numbers up here in your Prisma and make sure they equal your total. You're going to need to check this again in your methods, a second check on this process because you're writing it up. Finally, you should get to your eligibility. At eligibility, upon reviewing the full text, we excluded another X articles which were identified to be systematic reviews, and we also further excluded XXX because they were not actual research studies, which is fine. This left a total of 33 articles for the final review. And that's it. There was no magic here. We have just described in a simple and clear way the Prisma flow diagram. Now we're getting to the extraction step. And this part of the methods, I'm actually going to want you to fill out in the next week because we're going to go through the extraction and analysis stage. So you could already start to do this, but I want to stick with the principle that we're going to write up as we go along, that we're going to do the paper from the inside out. So this is a good point to leave it. I want you to make sure your Prisma is internally coherent, that the numbers all add up, that you make sure you're mentioning that you're following the best practice Prisma methods, that you have a search strategy, you outline the date and the databases you searched, and what the broad keywords were, how you operationalize them, citing, if relevant, your nearest neighbor papers that helped you get there, putting in the verbatim search so that you could copy and paste it in, and if it's too long, to put that in the appendix. Finally, I want you to make sure you itemize the numbers along the way, describing the Prisma, itemizing your inclusion and exclusion criteria, justifying them, and working all the way to the final number of articles that are in your review that we are taking on to the next week. I hope you feel good. I find it really satisfying when we can write this up because it's a big part of the process done and dusted, that it really marks a nice halfway transition point to where you're moving on to what I think is probably the most fun part, where you're going to analyze these data, these articles that you've worked so hard to optimize your search for to retrieve. You're going to analyze these and start getting really thick, engaging insights out of them. So I'm looking forward to next week, where really the magic of the systematic review begins to happen, and you're able to see things that other people can't, and you'll be able to answer questions that other people can't even begin to pose. So really excited to see you in the next week. I hope this is clear. If you need any more support on this, and especially in writing, because I know that can be a challenge for some of you, do check out the Foundations course in our writing training, especially using the peer method. That is going to help you along the way. We're going to come back to it again and again. Look forward to seeing you next week.